Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the third episode of Come On, Admit It. If you're new to this podcast series, welcome. I'm the host, Dominique Harris, and today's episode is going to focus on an array of topics, but the emphasis will be on race. I couldn't do this alone, so I asked my friend Niquaya to talk with me, and she's a special guest for today.
Hi, everyone who's listening, and thanks, Dom, for having me. I'm excited to dive into this topic.
Me too. It should be really, really interesting, especially with everything that is happening right now. We are on, the fourth day of the election? I think it goes hand in hand with the race in this country. That's what I feel, personally.
Yeah, and also the migraine that I've had for the last 3 days over this.
Literally,
my stress levels have been, peaking.
I wake up, I turn on CNN, I take a nap because I'm stressed from watching CNN. I wake up, watch it again.
Yeah.
Fall asleep 3 a.m., do the same cycle.
All of my Google searches are all related to the election this week.
It's like Arizona, the 2020 election, all that stuff, so.
Yeah. So just while we're on the topic of the election, one thing that I find particularly concerning about this whole, what's been happening over the past few days, is I feel like Trump is sending the wrong message to the American people, because he's not being careful in his choice of vocabulary when he's addressing certain things. So, for example, when he's saying, stop voting, but really what he means is stop counting, which is ridiculous because all of the ballots that are being counted are all legal. And if they weren't sent in by November 3rd, they were stamped. So all of the votes that are currently being counted over the past 3 days are all legal votes. They've either been sent in by November 3rd or they were marked, postmarked with the date. So
it's been known that each state has their own way of counting and their own laws per se, or rules on when and what ballots can be counted, accepted, all that stuff. So it's no one's fault that Pennsylvania's taking a long time, Nevada's taking a long time. They accept ballots up until November 10th, so that's gonna be a while. And it's just I feel like we're so used to having results quickly, just the environment that we're in, the internet's quick, all that stuff is quick. But it's this year it's different. A lot more people were registered to vote. And a lot of states, due to COVID, which I feel like Trump is forgetting, we are in the middle of a pandemic, which is why it's so different. But due to COVID, some states automatically sent out ballots to everyone that was registered. In New Jersey, where we are, that happened here.
And also in states such as Pennsylvania, where they kind of anticipated this influx of mail-in ballots, they did try to make a change to the policy so that they would be able to start counting those votes sooner rather than later. But it was actually members of the Republican Party who declined that, and said that they couldn't touch it until Election Day.
I think it was the Secretary of State, I believe, came on and did a news conference, and he was visibly frustrated. And he was if we were able to start early, we would have been done by now. We would have known right now. And it's just, it's frustrating for them. And you have it's literally real American people who are the ones in there counting the votes.
Mm-hmm.
They're getting paid minimum wage. They're literally there for hours. I see the same girl on CNN every single day. And I'm wow, does she even get up to use the bathroom?
Right.
It's literally American people, Republican, Democrat, Independent, whatever, in the same room, counting votes for the same purpose. And that's literally what democracy is. And that is what Trump is trying to get rid of because he's losing. He's throwing a temper tantrum, honestly.
Yeah, and I'm sure these people who are counting these votes, they want it to be over as quick as we want it to be over, because exactly. I'm sure they're, number one, they're tired, and number two, they're probably annoyed with hearing all the complaints that even though they're not coming to them directly, but they still know that people are frustrated with what's going on. But then also Trump, he's basically saying that there's sort of some suspicion behind why all of a sudden now Biden is gaining a lead on him in these battleground states. That's what they call them, right? This is the same president that when he was doing his little presidential campaigns in the different states, he was telling his supporters, don't do mail-in ballots, go vote in person. So what did you expect to happen today? And he honestly did himself a disservice, because it's like the people who maybe could not have gone to vote in person just decided not to vote at all, because they're like, well, Trump said not to mail in the ballots, so guess I'm not voting this year.
Exactly. And it's like, it goes back to like voter like suppression, honestly, everywhere. Like, doesn't matter like what race. Obviously it's been like seen more in like communities of color, but that could be for white people too, in rural areas, or like where it's literally 3 hours to get to the polling station and you just told your voters not to mail in their ballots. Mm-hmm. So it's like, I'm not going to drive 3 hours to go cast a vote or stand in line for 6 hours. And it's like, he should have used this democracy we have to the fullest, but he didn't. And that's his fault. It's backfiring. He knows it's backfiring, and he already deployed lawyers. He didn't even lose yet. That's right where we are. 6:30 on Friday. He has not lost yet, and he's pulling all the stops because I guess he thinks he's going to lose. Or in his mind, because he's not up by 57,000 million votes, he's like, no.
Are you surprised at all by, like, the percentage of black voters who voted for Trump?
Yes, but it's just like, no, I don't know. Honestly, it's like you see it all over social media. It's like blacks for Trump, which I just have my own issue with that in its first place. But it's like people really are out there like supporting him. I guess it goes down to the area that they're at. I have no idea. Mm-hmm. I don't know. And are you shocked by it?
Honestly, am surprised by the number of black voters, especially because it has gone up since the 2016 election for both women and men. I think I know the percentage. I don't know what the exact percentage is right now off the top of my head, but I do know that it's greater for men than it is for women. And I just find this shocking, especially because with everything that's going on with the whole Black Lives Matter movement and stuff, it's like you would kind of like think that that would sort of shift people's view on him.
I've also like noticed that the people that vote for Trump, like their sole reason, if they even have one, is like the economy or whatever. They care more about the economy than they do people. But people that vote for Biden, whether they're a hardcore supporter or not, they're voting for him for other people. Like, they're voting for him so that people that belong to the LGBTQ plus community, they can keep their rights. So women can keep their rights and do what they want with their bodies. So hopefully we'll see a change and black people's lives will actually start to matter. So that's why the people that vote for Biden, they're voting for Biden. It goes way beyond a political issue. It's human rights at this point, and I just don't understand how anybody could vote for Trump, like on the basis of the economy.
Yeah, and that's the other thing too. It like almost like it blows my mind honestly, because people who support Trump and you say to them like, oh, so like you support like racism and all the other like negative qualities that comes along with him, and they're like, no, it's just his economic policies that I agree with. Last time I checked, when you elect a president, you don't get to pick and choose which things you want him to bring along with him. He's gonna come with his whole package. So whatever beliefs and whatever stance he has on all issues are gonna come along with him. It's not like, oh, we only want you to focus on your economic plan. Like, that's not how it works. So a vote for Trump is a vote for everything that Trump stands for.
And obviously you're not gonna agree with like everything a candidate like stands for, something like that. Like, Biden obviously isn't perfect, but it's like,
at least he's not out here like blatantly like discrediting.
It's different issues, like
like he's not just like blatantly like ignoring like real issues that people of this country are facing.
So that's just where I stand on that, and that's why I don't understand why it's even a close race right now. Like,
yeah, that scares me.
I don't know what I expected. Like, I knew that there's gonna be a large turnout of Republicans voting in person, so I knew he'd be up. But I wasn't expecting it to be this close. But, like, even looking at the popular vote, like, Biden is up by a lot. It's really record-breaking. So just that in itself should be like, okay, Biden should be president. The popular vote, I feel like that's not as close as, like, the different states, which is just, that makes me feel a little bit better. But the fact that it's even, like, we're in this situation that we're in right now because 4 states still need to be tallied because it's that close is ridiculous. And the fact that Georgia right now is most likely going to have to do a recount because the votes are that close is just crazy to me.
Mm-hmm. And honestly, like, I feel like this election, there are so many situations that are arising that I feel like we've never encountered in previous elections, and it's honestly scary. Like, the amount of like violence that people are inciting, it's concerning because it's like, is there really gonna be a civil war?
Like literally the thing that like broke my heart. I was literally talking to my mom today, and she was like, "I'm so nervous." She was like, "I can't sleep. Like my stomach hurts. I'm dizzy." And she was like, "You'll be fine because you're light skinned." And I was like, "That's like literally broke my heart." I was like, I was like, if we result back to that, I'm gonna cry, obviously.
No.
And it just pushes me to want to be like a politician and like make change. Like that's crazy.
Right.
Literally, we are however many years from the civil rights movement, and it's just like we're going back in time. We're going in circles. It's just
I feel like Trump is literally taking this country by the foot and dragging it backwards. Like, we've made so, like, even though, like you said, this country's not perfect, in terms of like where we started and where we are now, like we've made so much progress, and like I would hate for that all to be destroyed by one person. Like, even with him going back on things like regarding like gay and trans rights, it's like, why do you need to go back and tamper with something that hasn't shown any like real issue? Like, it hasn't made a negative impact on the quality of life of the people in this country. So why do you need to tamper with it?
It's been 5 years since rights were granted to people who are gay and want to marry like whoever they love. And like 5 years, like what has changed significantly in your life in 5 years because of that?
Yeah, that absolutely you feel nothing. The need to be like, okay, let's take this back away from them. They've had enough.
Literally, absolutely. It's ridiculous. There's pressing issues and topics to focus on, and like your focus is on prohibiting someone from living their life to the fullest.
Like you said, like, I don't know what I expected the outcome of this election to be, but I definitely had, like, I had hope in this country, and that, like, you know, the last 4 years would be, like, eye-opening, especially, like, with the way that we're ending these last 4 years with, like, the COVID rates, like, you know, so many people are dying from it, and Trump is more concerned with getting the Supreme Court nominee elected, you know, like, instead of saving the lives of his own people. And that just makes me wonder, like, how can you truly believe that his main goal is to protect the people of this country? It's not. He has his own agenda.
He thinks it's like a dictatorship. I feel like he forgot that there's the Senate and the House. Too much. He forgot the Senate and the House, and it's just like that's why he's trying to fill them both with Republicans.
Which is also not working. I know that Democrats have the House right now, and I think the Senate too, as of recently.
I know the Senate, I think it's 45 right now, and then you need 51, or it's like 46. It's pretty split right now.
Yeah, I know that the Democrats have lost some seats in the House, but not enough to where the Republicans are now the majority.
Well, that's good, because it would be really disappointing if Biden were to get elected and then he has all these plans, but then they keep getting shut down because the Republicans are just saying, no, you can't do this, you can't do this, which is ridiculous. Like, I feel like everybody, no matter what party you affiliate with, you need to take a step back, see where the country is. We are so beyond divided, and regardless of your party, just think, like, are these policies going to help the people? Because, like, realistically, like, politicians, I feel like they're there to serve the people. Like, I feel like same thing with like police, like politicians, they got it twisted. They think that like they're like above, but it's like, no, you're there for the people, you're the greater voice of the people.
And also, like, I kind of like this came to mind as you were speaking. I think that we, like, as Americans, need to learn about like government and like politics later on in life. Like, I feel like we learn about it too early, that people like don't really like get a full like grasp of it, because like you're at the age where like you're not really concerned about that kind of stuff. I feel like people a lot of times, like, the arguments that people are making are invalid because they don't have the facts straight. They don't understand how the government works, and they don't understand how there are checks and balances in place so that things such as voter fraud are nearly impossible.
And it also depends on like where you are. Like, some places have better like educational systems than others, but it's like I didn't learn like actually how the Electoral College works until sophomore year of college when I took a political science class. That information stuck with me, I think, because I learned it so late, but it's like not everyone gets to go to college. So it's like,
Right.
like you said, like learning it in high school and like actually teaching like the internal parts and like how it works.
And just even like how things are like approved. Like it's not like the president thinks of something and then it just goes into play. Like no, like bills have to be passed through each branch. Not one person is responsible for the federal law.
And I feel like people forgot that because Trump tried to make it a dictatorship. Like, I hope he goes out of office and I hope he goes peacefully.
Right.
And doesn't cause a scene because that's the
He's
last
already
thing.
throwing a tantrum, so.
Yeah. He literally came and did like a press conference basically like in front of the American people claiming he got cheated out of an election that, one, he didn't lose yet. Two, according to like all the states and their representatives and the people that are there counting the votes, it's going smoothly. So nothing has been going wrong. He didn't get cheated out of anything per se. And he just came in, he's filing all these lawsuits without evidence.
Yeah.
And now he's scrambling trying to find evidence. There was one reporter who is like in Washington and they're getting like inside sources and they say like it's literally chaos. Like it's chaos in the White House right now because they know they're losing. Which is crazy because it's like, okay, you're losing. Take it.
Right.
Write your speech congratulating Biden and step down. Like
Right. Yeah, and like honestly, the way that the electoral map looks, there is no surprise, like real surprises there. Maybe Georgia, because I believe they said that it's been a long time since Georgia has gone blue. But we also have to consider well, first of all, the area in which these votes are coming from. So the reason for the spike was because I believe the recent votes that have been counted came from the metropolitan area in Atlanta, which are mostly young, progressive minorities, right? Yeah. So it's like, no shit, you're gonna see a spike in Biden's numbers.
And like, I think what like he forgot is like there's a whole new per se generation of like young voters. Like there's
Right.
literally years, was like 4 or 5 years of like new voters that are a part of Gen Z, just want to see change. Like I feel like this generation is so like open to everyone, like everyone deserves rights, and it's because of like Twitter and everything, Instagram. We're all so connected. We all see like the hardships that people go through in places that might not even be like within 50 miles of us, but it's like we see that and we want better for people regardless of if we know them or not. It's just, as Americans, as a true American, you have to be able to like see the flaws in your country, acknowledge them, and then want to change them. You can't just say that our country's perfect and then ignore everything else. That's not a real American, and that's what Trump is preaching, and his cult, as I call them, is preaching, and it's like, that's not a true American. That's just being blissfully ignorant.
Yeah, exactly. And it's so interesting to me because the way that white people react to black people making mentions of slavery, they're like, oh, that happened so many years ago. By the way, it was only 400 years ago. But that happened so many years ago. Like, forget, like, just leave it in the past, right? But these are the same people who are using the Bible, which has texts from the history of the beginning of time, yeah? And they're using that as support for their arguments for things such as homosexuality is a sin or abortion is a sin. But you want me to forget about slavery that happened only 400 years ago?
And the effects of it are still being felt today. The deep, like, effects of slavery are literally still being felt today. And it's like, you just can't tell someone to forget about it and move on, because you can't really forget about it and move on. This country was literally built on race. Yeah. Like, when people came here, they were told if they were white or if they were non-white or, like, black. So it's like, you can't say, oh, just forget about race all of a sudden. You have to acknowledge it to be able to fix the problems that we're going through. And to say you're blind to it is like, it's a privilege almost. Like, okay, great for you. You get to be blind to it, but not everyone can be blind to it.
Right. Like, I wake up every day and it's very clear to me, like, who I am. And I'm a black woman living in America. And I don't think that there's ever a day that goes by where I can kind of forget about that. Like, it's you know, because even like when you're like in your like regular everyday interactions, I remember actually recently my mom, she had came to me and she was like, she was at J. Crew and said to me, she was like, what would you think of this if it was you? She was like, I was in the store and I was at the counter checking out, and the employee had mentioned to me this thing where I could get a personal shopper to come along with me while I'm in the store. And the interesting thing about it was that the woman had only mentioned it to my mom, no one in front of her, and my mom had to stay at the counter for a little bit because she was waiting for another associate to bring something to her, so she was able to hear the transactions after her, and she was like, she never made mention of it again, and she was like, would you take that as like, you know, like her, like a race thing?
Like a race thing, yeah.
It's like, oh, you're black, so like you need to be watched while you shop.
It's like they're not even like trying to be discreet about it. And it's just like, okay, do you take it as a race thing, or is it like, am I being sensitive in air quotes? It's just like, I feel like people are trying to like, in the time that we're in right now, everyone's trying to say like, oh, you're so sensitive, whatever. But it's like, no, like, we're bringing light to these issues, and it's not okay to act like that anymore. It should have never been okay to act like that, but now it's really not okay. And I feel like going back to like Trump, he's made it okay in a sense, and his following thinks that it's okay, and that is why he's so resilient to leave the White House. His followers don't want to leave the White House because they have to go back into hiding, basically.
Yeah, like he brings them like this sort of like comfort, like it's okay to really be who you are, which is at the core a racist. So go do it.
And just, I think it's important that we, like, define, like, racism. People have, like, different ideas and, like, their own definitions, but we're kind of going off, like, a textbook definition. For institutional racism, it's just a systematic white domination of people of color embedded and operating in corporations, universities, legal systems, political bodies, etc. So that is what we're going off of, and that's, honestly, I think, like, what we see today as well, but also it's changing, and you can kind of see that in this election. People of color have exercise their right to register to vote, and that's being seen in this election right now. Like, Democrats, not all people of color are Democrats, obviously, but I feel like the majority of them are, and like that's being shown right now. Like, especially in places like Atlanta, like the cities, it's literally being shown that like when you give people their right to vote, they're gonna use it, and when you don't suppress them, we can make a difference.
Do you know anything regarding the numbers of like, let's say, Republicans who voted for Biden? I'm curious to see, like, if there was, like, a huge shift there.
I don't have any specific numbers, but just, like, from watching the news. And no, I only haven't been paying attention to CNN. I flipped through Fox a few times. I flipped through ABC. So, there were a few, like, Republicans that were like, I just can't vote for Trump. And I feel like at the core of it, like, that's what we need to get back to. Like, politics, okay, Republican, Democrat, Independent, that's one thing, but it's literally just like Democrats and then it's like Trump supporters.
Right.
Obviously, like, there's some Republicans that are like, okay, he's the candidate, so I have to vote for him, but there are some that are like, I voted Republican 30 years and this year I just can't, and they voted Democrat, they voted for Biden. So it's like, I feel like, yeah, there has been a pretty big switch, which Trump's party might have not been expecting, because everyone has the numbers. You see how many registered Democrats there are, you see how many registered Republicans there are, independents, whatever, so they might have thought they had more leeway than they do, and that may also be because Republicans switched over and they're like, no, I can't do it this year.
Yeah. I wonder if we weren't like required to choose a party and we just like voted freely, if that would make a difference. Because, you know, like as you said, like some people are like, I'm a Republican, so I have to vote for whoever the Republican candidate is. But like I wonder, like, if you didn't have to associate yourself with a certain group, if people would be more open to the opposing side.
I think so, yeah, definitely. Because it's like your party affiliation, for some people, I feel like it's like a part of their identity, you know? It's like, I align with this, so like...
It's like, I'm a Democrat before I'm a person.
So it's like, I have to stick with the views of my party. And it's like, if we stripped that away, or maybe created more parties, what would happen? I always think about that.
Yeah. Honestly, that's an issue just within society in general.
Yeah.
It's like trying to fit people into these like perfect boxes that people don't always necessarily fit in.
And I feel like it's also not a waste, but an independent has never won like president. So all these votes that are going to the independent, I'm like, wow.
Yeah. I mean, it's like a very small percentage, but it could make a difference in a close race like this one.
Right.
So. Yeah. And also, I think, like, I never understood why people are allowed to write in candidates. Like
Mickey Mouse, the amount of votes that Mickey Mouse gets each year. Why?
Why is that allowed? Like,
didn't Kanye get like 50,000?
Mm-hmm. Which is a lot. Considering that Biden is only above Trump in certain states by thousands.
That's crazy.
So just imagine if those 50,000 went to Biden instead, or Trump, then that it could completely change the way that the state looks on the map.
I think politics, like, in itself needs a little bit of, like, reform. Because I think you should lower the age requirements to, like, be in the Senate, run for president, be in the House, be the...
we need more progressive, like, open-minded people representing us, for sure.
It just needs change. And it's, like, you should have to be, like, involved in politics for some time. You shouldn't be a reality TV star and then be able to just say, oh, I'm going to run. And it's like, I feel like people thought it was a joke until it wasn't a joke and it was Trump and Hillary. 2016 election night.
What's the current age requirement to be president?
I believe it's 35, but I'll look it up. It actually might be higher than
So, like,
that.
just think, like, someone in our generation, like, they wouldn't even be able to consider running for president for, like, another 20 years.
Yeah, so, according to USA.gov, so it says that in Article 2 of the U.S. Constitution, but the president must be a natural-born citizen of the United States, be at least 35 years old, and have been a resident of the states for 14 years.
And be male.
Right. Literally write that in somewhere because that's what it seems like. I think that's why Hillary lost, personally.
No, same.
There was a lot of people that just could not accept, even, like...
People have blatantly said, like, women do not belong in leadership roles.
And it's literally women that have also said this. I feel like more women were, like, so against it than, like, men. They're just literally like, that's not where a woman belongs, whatever. It's like, okay, why do we still have such old ideology? Like, if a woman wants to run for president, she should run for president. Hopefully Biden and Kamala win, but she will literally be the first woman as vice president, which is crazy to me. It's been how many years? What, this is going to be president 46? And just now there might be a woman? That's crazy. It needs to change.
And then sometimes, too, the only argument that people have against women running for president is when I think about the president, I think of a male. Yeah, that's because it's only been a male for however many years now.
So that's what you like. That's
what you associate.
That's what you
with.
think. Exactly. Yeah. That's what you think it is. But literally anything could change. Like at one point, there was only male astronauts. That changed. That's not the case now. Like there was only male firefighters, male police officers. Now that's changed. Because
even when you think about rappers, like the first thing you think about is a male rapper. You don't really think about female rappers, and that's because they are the majority.
Exactly. While I feel in my heart, in my gut, that we are moving towards the right direction and hopefully Biden takes the presidency, there's still like a lot more work to be done and more progression that this country could see, but I feel like it's a step, and having Biden, he can help get the country back on the right track, hopefully unite us a little bit more. But that's honestly, if Trump is willing to throw things up to the wind and say, all right, I lost, and get his following to be on board, because I think honestly without that it's going to be a wild 4 years.
Yeah. And yeah, so I mean, while Biden being elected would be a step in the right direction, our work is not done. There's still plenty of things that need to continue to be pressed issues, including the Black Lives Matter movement, because still to this day Black lives have not mattered.
Yeah, I feel like it doesn't get talked about enough. Like during their presidential debates and the vice presidential debates and stuff, it's like it's kind of a brief topic that we skim across, and it literally just reminded me of like the school years when like you spend 2 weeks talking about slavery, racism, and it's like every other week in history class is like white history. And it's like, why? Like, okay, because it makes you uncomfortable. Good. That's how you learn and that's how you grow, is when you're put in uncomfortable situations. And I feel like I want to see what gets done with that. Like, there needs to be police reform. There needs to be education on the topic. And that's where I stand. Where do you stand on this?
As
far as like Black Lives Matter and like the change that kind of like needs to happen, not needs to be talked about, but needs to like happen.
So I think what needs to happen is that we need to start seeing people being held accountable for their wrongdoings. So, and this means all people. So when there is a police officer who, you know, oversteps his boundaries as an officer, we need to see him face the repercussions for his actions and not for him to be excused. You firing him does not, that's not holding him accountable for what he's done. That's basically like giving him the easy way out, because he can continue to live his life comfortably. Oh, like maybe he's out of a job, but like I'm sure he can go and find work elsewhere. So I think like really like just making it like known to everyone that we have zero tolerance for this kind of behavior could go a long way.
And like, did you see, I don't know if you saw, but there was like a video that kind of like surfaced, and an officer, he didn't realize that his like mic was on and still recording, and he pulled over 2 people on motorcycles, and I don't remember their race, so I'm not going to try to like make it a race thing, but he pulled over 2 people on motorcycles, and he was like, I'm going to shoot. I could use the paid vacation time. And it's like, they just know.
He said that?
Yeah. They just know that they're going to get a slap on the wrist, because that's what is embedded in the system. And it's like, there needs to be change. Let's not forget, police officers were created after slavery ended. And it's like, we are still on that system. There needs to be reform. And like, while obviously every cop isn't a bad cop, they're still sworn in under a system that is a bad system, honestly, in my opinion.
Right. And just because you yourself are not a bad cop, because you have not committed any like wrongful doings, does not mean that you're not also responsible for what happened, because it's like, what did you do in response to what happened within your profession?
When there's people like you, you feel empowered. So it's like when there's a cop doing something bad and his colleagues are just standing there letting it happen, he's like, okay, I could do this. But when during like the Black Lives Matter protest, there was one cop who was getting really aggressive with the protest, and the police chief was like, no, don't do that, stop. Like, and he like backed off, and it's like, yeah, it's not okay, your actions are not okay. So I'm just peacefully protesting. And you think that gives you the right to like bombard them, knock them over, like spray pepper spray in their eyes, when it's like they have nothing that could possibly hurt you. You are in thousands of dollars of riot gear and you're scared. I think you're in the wrong profession. Like, you need to be trained how to de-escalate situations, not escalate them.
Yeah, and I'm tired of this line, I feared for my life. Like, how are you fearing for your life when the only weapon that they have against you is the color of their skin? That's what you're fearful of. They don't have any sort of gun or knife on them. You already searched them, so you know that. But yet you still feel that it's necessary for you to unload your gun into their body.
And it just goes back to, like, racial stereotypes and everything. It's like, we need to just wipe those clean. Not every single person of a race acts the exact same. Like, we are all different people. We all come from different places. We all act differently. And it's just like, it's crazy that you are literally, when you pull someone over, you walk up to their car, you see the color of skin, and then that's how you judge whether you need to grab your gun or not. Yeah. And it's like, why?
And sometimes it doesn't even have to take them pulling you over and getting to your car to find out. Like, sometimes they'll see you driving and they'll see, like, oh, that's a black person. Let me pull them over for no apparent reason. This actually happened to my uncle recently. He got pulled over in Princeton, and he asked the officer, like, oh, what am I being pulled over for? Because he knew he wasn't speeding. And the officer's like, he said that the light above his license plate was out, which it wasn't. Okay. And then the officer continues and he's like, so have you ever been pulled over before? Like, what? Like why are you wasting my time right now, sir? Like, can I go about my business?
I just like hate when I see like the internet. This isn't every cop. This is like a cop in a different area, but it's like, it's just across the board, like general, like widespread. It does not matter where you are. If I get pulled over in New Jersey or I get pulled over in West Virginia, I'm most likely going to have the same experience.
The whole Blue Lives Matter thing really boils my blood. First of all, there is no such thing as a blue life. Second of all, you have the freedom to choose your profession. However, black people do not get to choose how they're born and what skin they're born into.
Literally.
Or not even just black people. People in general do not have control over that. Like, you don't get to choose the life that you're born into. Like, it just happens and you go from there with it.
It's just ironic that Blue Lives Matter was born a couple months after Black Lives Matter started trending on Twitter, after the acquittal of George Zimmerman in the Trayvon Martin case. So it's like, okay, Blue Lives Matter, but why didn't they matter before this? Why were they a direct result of Black Lives Matter? And then obviously after that comes All Lives Matter, which is so blind in itself. But
yeah,
because if all lives mattered, you would have no issue saying Black Lives Matter. It's shown right now that they don't.
It doesn't register with me why people see a threat in the saying Black Lives Matter, because if you done your research and you understand the history of this country, you would understand that never did Black Lives matter. And even still today, in many situations, do Black lives not matter. And what we mean by that is Black lives aren't held up to the same standard that other lives are. It's easier for the country to accept the loss of a Black life than it is for the loss of a white life, especially if that life is the life of a white woman.
And I just think it's really telling that when you survey mainly white people, obviously it's not only white people, but mainly when you survey them, it's always no, I can't support Black Lives Matter, mainly because in their minds they think that Black people are trying to say that they're better than everyone. But it's that's telling, because white people have always been positioned as the dominant, better race, better than everyone. And it's now
this country was built in your favor.
A race just wants to be equal, and it's oh no.
Are you serious?
Unfortunately, I can't get on board with that. But it's why? You claim you're pro-American, you're pro-life, you're pro this, so you should be pro Black Lives Matter.
Yeah, because Black people are also American.
Let's not forget that.
They fall right in line with your morals there.
Hopefully, this country will move in the better direction. By the time this podcast is posted, we might know the results of the election. Hopefully. I would
hopefully it's the same as we're seeing on TV right now.
Yeah, hopefully Biden takes it. I think he has the power to unite this country, and I think he'll do it. So hopefully the country gets better. I just want to thank you, Nicoya, for being my guest.
Yeah, I had so much fun today.
Thank you so much for listening. If you want to stay up to date with my podcast, you can head over to Instagram or Facebook at Come On Admit It Podcast. I try to post on Wednesdays. I had a technical difficulty this Wednesday, so that's why it is going up a little bit later, but that's when I usually try to post. If you want to, you can give your opinions or feedback on Instagram or Facebook. I love that. I love to hear what you guys have to say. And thank you so much for listening, and tune in next time.